Hi folks, I just wanted to come on and give you another update on the situation here with the Australian fires. It's been about a week or 10 days probably since I brought you a report. This will probably be the last report that I bring you on the situation with the Australian fires unless something untoward happens, something that we don't expect. But it seems to be running along pretty much the way we expected it to run along. As you can see from this map here, the situation's improved a little bit from what it was last time I brought you a report. I think there was around about 140 fires, 144 fires or something burning last time I spoke to you about the fires. Now you can see there are 71 fires burning in New South Wales. There's probably more burning in Victoria, probably some in Queensland, but most of my focus has been on New South Wales and on what's been happening on Kangaroo Island as well down here in South Australia. I'd also, at this point, while I remember right at the start of this report here, I'd like to put out a special message of sympathy and support to Mike Morales, who has the channel, I think it's called Above Ground World News. Mike Morales' wife was in a pretty bad car accident quite recently. She has a long road to recovery, so I'd like to put out a special message and message of support to Mike and his family and his wife, see what they're going through at the moment. Mike's been bringing a lot of really good reports on how the weather is being modified. If you haven't checked out his channel, I recommend you do so. So I'd just like to do that now while I remember it. As I mentioned before, Kangaroo Island has been very devastated in these fires, folks. You can see here, I mean, the state of the forest. They say there's something like 30,000 koalas were killed in the fires on Kangaroo Island, and there has been a reason for this as well. I mean, it's absolutely devastating what's happened to this place, folks. It's been like nothing we've ever seen, and just the fact that the fires got to Kangaroo Island, the way they got there, the way they broke out sort of simultaneously all over the island, it really doesn't make sense for this to have happened the way it did. But it did, and Kangaroo Island has been pretty much devastated on this island. There was drilling that was going on there last year, drilling just to see what sort of minerals were found there. And as we know, what was found there was lithium, huge lithium deposits, and I would suggest this is what has happened to Kangaroo Island, folks. They intend to open it up for lithium mining. We've also seen fires break out on French Island, which is off the Victorian coast. Excuse me, off the Victorian coast. You've got to wonder how the fires get to these islands, folks. I mean, really, these islands, I mean, they're way offshore. We've got fires on the mainland. How would they be getting to these islands and just breaking out simultaneously? Also areas where there are huge koala populations, you know, pristine areas, national parks, all areas that have been shown interest for other purposes as well. French Island, they did want to open it up for a tourist attraction. They wanted to turn the old prison there into a tourist attraction. The Chinese, of course, own French Island now, folks, as they do with so many things in Australia. The Chinese seem to own them now. And there was also talk of a power station being built on French Island as well, but there were protests about that quite recently. I think 2017, this group has been protecting French Island for a long time. If you look down here, 2017, hard-fought campaign by Environment Victoria. Hazelwood Power Station is closed. This is what they wanted to do on French Island. They wanted to do all sorts of stuff to it, open up for tourism, perhaps turn it into a power station, all sorts of plans for it, but they weren't able to because it is such a pristine national park. So what do we see right on cue? Emergency warning issued for French Island, home to 100 residents and a strong koala population. So same thing we're seeing in French Island as what we saw on Kangaroo Island. Again, you see that this is an area they want to open up for something else, very likely a power station. We've got these things in Australia now, these, I'll see if I can find a link and I'll put it below. It's like a portable nuclear power station, sort of small modular nuclear power stations that they want to install, and they're suggesting this would be a good source of power for Australia as well. So, you know, this is where They're taking it all, folks. And like I said, we've had a little bit of rain as well that's brought the fires down a little bit, but they control the weather, folks. They can bring the rain in where they want. If you don't believe they can control the weather, I suggest you look at part 6 and part 7 of this series. Part 6 is about directed energy weapons and weather control, and part 7 is purely about weather control. It shows the technology they've got and shows Australian CEOs of various companies saying quite openly that they can control the weather, and this is how they put out certain bushfires. So one would question why they're not putting out these bushfires in that way. But they're not, folks. But we have had ridiculous weather here. The result, of course, has been that it's washed all of the ash into the rivers. And what we're seeing, I mean, people are saying the rain is so welcome, but the rain that's been coming down has literally been torrential. And the result has been that it's washed so much of this ash into the river system, which has killed all the fish, clogged up all the rivers, so it's just doing further damage. You know, torrential rain after a bad fire like this is not a godsend at all. It actually just compounds the problem, and that's what we've seen. Again, I'll put the link below so you can check out all these articles for yourself. And the weather has been incredible, folks. It's been just off the charts. Have a bit of a look at this. We've had dust storms. We've had golf balls the size of hail. There was talk that every car that was parked outside in Canberra about a week ago was completely smashed. All the windscreens were smashed by a hailstorm. Check some of this out. And of course, straight after the hailstorm, what we saw was fires break out on the edge of Canberra. Straight after this hailstorm, like the next day or 2 days after. Quite ridiculous, folks. And have a look at these cars. Like, there was a report on the news that every car that was parked outside in Canberra during this storm,
insurance will just skyrocket.
was destroyed.
Oh my goodness.
And these dust storms in Western Australia, New South Wales, South Australia as well. So we're having some particularly interesting weather around here, folks. We really are. I was actually in one of these dust storms when I was a child in South Australia. We had a white house, and I remember our entire house turned red, and our mother had to paint the house again. Didn't have a father around, but Mum had to paint the house white because the entire house was red. We just suggested that she leave it red because it was kind of a nice, dusty Australian red, but she didn't like it. But that's the sort of thing that we're having happening in this country, folks. I don't think you need to see much more of that. But that's the sort of stuff we're having happen in this country, folks. And as I said to you previously, you know, the main purpose of this has been Agenda 21. They want to push the people out of the rural areas into the city areas, into the smart cities. They want to put in the high-speed rail. High-speed rail, the Labor Party is using this as one of their voting standards at the moment, saying vote for us, we're going to do the high-speed rail. So it's still on the cards. But the fires don't just follow the high-speed rail line. It's also about pushing people out of these rural areas. As I mentioned to you, what they will do is they will make the rates too high, so you won't be able to afford to live there. On, I think, the first report I showed you here, I showed you a document which was the Hawkesbury planning. It's a draft. This document here was a draft that was leaked to me of the local strategic planning statement for the Hawkesbury region, council draft from 2017 to 2040. And as I showed you in this document, I think if you go through, I think it's page 82. If you go up here to page 82, you'll see it's all about sustainable development. This is what they're all talking about, bushfire management, all this sort of stuff. And it says here on this page, new development will be restricted in areas vulnerable to natural hazards. Here the risk to life and property is high. It says here, develop specific natural hazard chapters to include planning controls to protect and mitigate development in areas prone to natural hazards. So they want to limit development in these areas prone to natural hazards, folks. Maintain environmentally sensitive places in their natural condition through protection and encroachment from sensitive land uses. And this is before this fire season happened, before all these mega fires and all this stuff that we've seen. And the amount of people that they've evacuated and suggested that it's not safe for them to go back to their homes. And if you think that's not happening, folks, have a look at this. Bushfire destroyed homes should not be rebuilt in riskiest areas, experts say. Planning experts call for state governments to buy back land from people in most bushfire-prone areas. Now consider this, folks. We had whole towns where the police were coming in and evacuating the people and just leaving the town to a small fire crew. The fire crews were saying, listen, if the people stay in their homes, we can put out the fire and then we can move through the town. But if the people leave their homes, there's no one there to put out a spot fire. And all it takes to put out a spot fire is like, sometimes just a cup of water is all it takes to put it out. Just a bit of ember, a bit of ash that flies over. But if the people leave their homes, they can't do that and the whole village will get destroyed. And that's what happened. People were evacuated and whole towns were put in situations where the whole town would burn down. And now they can say it's a risky area and they're going to offer to buy back the land and move people into town. So that's what all this has been about the whole time, folks, Agenda 21. And this is Agenda 21. If people think that it isn't happening, well, this is Agenda 21. Exactly what they're saying here is Agenda 21. And there's another one here that says, Australia's bushfires may create the nation's first climate refugees. Think about it, folks. Climate change, climate refugees. Oh, it's just getting so hot. They're all climate refugees. And we're putting out reports saying, hottest day on record. Hottest day on record. We've never seen days like this. There's a report here. Have a look at this one. This report here, it says, Australia has set a new heat record, smashing the previous one in 1939, hitting 46.2 degrees Celsius this afternoon, saying that is a record for South Australia. Folks, I grew up in Adelaide. I remember days that were 110 degrees, 115 degrees, 120 degrees when I was a kid in Adelaide. You have a look at this up here. Forgotten history, 50 degrees everywhere right across Australia in the 1800s. Here you've got 160 days above 38 degrees in Marble Bar. Here you've got 50 degrees in Oodnadatta, 50 degrees, 49 degrees, 50 degrees, 51 degrees, 53, 51, 52, 53, 49, 49, 50, 51, 51, 49, 50. Folks, we have had temperatures far, far hotter than what we're seeing now. We've had temperatures far hotter than what we're seeing now, even in my childhood when I was a kid in Adelaide, because it gets pretty hot in Adelaide. Like I said, I remember dust storms that turned our place red. This report here in the Ballarat Star, 110 degrees, 115 degrees, 102 degrees, 105 degrees, 115, 110, 110, 121 degrees. This is Fahrenheit now, because we only changed to Celsius for Americans. We only changed to Celsius a few years back. So back in those days, it was Fahrenheit. So these are extraordinarily high temperatures. The worst heat wave was probably in January 1896 when the nation was like a furnace. Extreme heat wave. All you've got to do is read some of these reports, folks. What they're telling you about climate change and this being setting major heat records we've never experienced before, it's a complete lie. It's all completely fabricated. And you can just go and look at the journals themselves. I've actually got a book here of the Courier Mail from 1842 to 1992, or 1846 to 1992. And I've been looking through that, and I can find records in there of days that are much, much hotter than days we're experiencing now. So, don't believe what they're telling you, folks. And as I said, what this is about is Agenda 21. It's about moving people into smart cities. And the information that I've brought you on what is now an 8-part series on the Australian fires should leave no doubt in anybody's mind. So this entire situation has been contrived. You know, they've genocided all of these animals and they've relocated and evacuated all of these people simply to set an example to the rest of the world of what happens when you don't pay attention to climate change. I don't think they've finished yet. I mean, the fires are still burning. There may only be 71 fires burning at the moment, but there will be more. I have no doubt about that. You know, as they say, fire season, they don't call it summer anymore. Fire season has only really just begun. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more of this happen. It's not surprising at all to see the rain that's come as well. The fire reports that I was doing really were reaching a lot of people, even to the point that there was an article in the mainstream news recently actually naming me and saying I was a conspiracy theorist that was saying all these fires were started with laser beams, which is not what I was saying at all. I was actually suggesting that people very much question those claims. I was pointing out that directed energy weapons are real, absolutely, but that we should question pictures that appear of ray beams coming from the sky, because a lot of this could well be disinformation and we need to vet things very carefully. That's what I was saying in that report. But just the fact that they put out a newspaper article to defame me in that way, and then there was an attack that was launched against me recently where I was quite literally targeted with something, folks. I'm still trying to figure out what it was, but this is something real that did happen, and I will be addressing that on a later video somewhere down the track. It won't be too far away, but once I've kind of gathered my thoughts around it a little bit more to try to make some sense out of it all, I will address that. But, you know, there was a coordinated attack launched against me because these 5 videos were making a difference. I'm pretty sure of that. So it makes perfect sense that they would attack me and attempt to discredit me the way they did. So there was that attack. There was the claims of plagiarization that were launched against me. There was the troll farms that massively hit my channel, all because of the difference these 5 videos were making. But if you look through these 5 videos, you're going to find all the evidence you need to find exactly how corrupt our government is here in Australia, exactly how they are manipulating this drought to make sure it happens, how they are controlling our water, how they are stealing our water and selling it to overseas interests, how they're breaking the Constitution in every way, shape and form that they can. You know, and as I've said so many times, you know, this is an invalid criminal organisation. That's what this government is. And it's quite literally hanging the Australian people out to dry. You know, all the information that you need to make a difference and to make the Australian people aware of what's really going on here is in these fire report videos. So if you are an Australian, I do urge you to look through this whole series of 8 videos. They're about 15 to 20 minutes each. One of them may be a bit longer. One of them may be around about an hour. I've tried to keep them short, but you know, sometimes there's just a lot of information to share. So I do urge you to look at them. I do urge you to share them. I will be bringing you another report soon. I want to talk about the coronavirus. There's a few things I want to talk about. There's a lot of stuff that I want to share with you. There's a lot of stuff I have to talk about. There's a lot of answers I would suggest that people probably want as well. And like I said, with what happened to me, this targeting, I mean, I've always wondered about targeted individuals. And, well, I don't have to wonder anymore. Now I know that it actually is a reality. And I know how completely inexplicable it is for people to be able to explain this. So, yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, folks. Strange thing. But anyway, that's about all I've got for you today. As I said, I will bring you a report soon. I'll bring you another one soon. I've got to go overseas soon. I'm going to be speaking at an Acapulco for anybody who is going to be in Mexico in February. I'll be there, I think it's around about the 14th to the 17th, something like that. If you want a ticket, you can go in via my website, thecrowhouse.com. You can buy a ticket to an Acapulco, or you can simply use the coupon MAXIGAN as one word, MAXIGAN, and you'll get yourself a discount on the ticket, and I look forward to seeing you there. But thanks for listening to me today, folks. I'll bring you another report as soon as I'm able. As I said, this will very likely be the end of the fire reports unless something very significant happens to, bring me some information that I need to share with you. But otherwise, this will probably be it for the fire reports for now, and I'll get back onto some other topics very soon and bring you at least 1 or 2 more reports before I head overseas next month. Thanks for listening, folks. In Litecoin.